Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here at the Project Management National Conference, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this conference. I'll speak about the Aadhaar experience, and I'll speak from a program management and project management point of view, because the story began about 6 years back in 2009. In 2008, actually, I'd written a book called Imagining India, where one of the ideas I talked about was the fact that we needed an ID system to really streamline government disbursements and generally give everybody an identity which they can participate in society. Parallelly, the government had been working on a unique ID project because government had been spending more and more money on subsidies and entitlements, and they felt having an ID system would help in making things more efficient. That began in 2006, and sometime in early 2009, the cabinet approved the formation of this body called the Unique ID Authority of India. And in June 2009, I was invited by the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, to lead this project. Now, the challenge was very simple: how to give 1 billion people a unique ID. It was a one-line sort of objective. But as you start digging into that, you have to think through how do you actually make that happen. And we spent a lot of time in conceptualizing the strategy, the program management and project management to make it happen. So it is one of those rare projects where the goal was met before the target date and in less than the budgeted amount. So I guess from a project management point of view, that's a good thing to do. That if you can deliver something before its targeted date and in less than the budget, then that's not a bad thing. So when I took charge, we had an early meeting of the cabinet, and I made a promise that this was sometime in August of 2009. I made a promise that we would enroll 600 million people in 5 years. That, in other words, we would give 600 million people an Aadhaar number within 5 years. That means by August 2014, we would have 600 million people with Aadhaar. We reached that target in March 2014. So we reached that 6 months ahead of the target. And today the number of Aadhaars issued is 910 million, and it will reach 1 billion by March 2016. So that was on the target front. On the budget front, so far the expenditure of the entire Aadhaar system is about 8,000, maybe 7,000-8,000 crores, whereas the budget we had actually put in was about 12,000 to 15,000 crores. So in that sense, it was below budget and in less time. And the use of Aadhaar just in the LPG subsidy program, where, as you know, India runs the world's largest cash transfer program in LPG, which was started in the previous government, continued by this government under the name PAHAL, and 120 to 130 million people are getting 8 subsidies by cash transfer every year, which is about 1 billion transactions a year. That system alone has saved the government 10,000 crores. In other words, one system, one application in one sector in 1 year has saved more money than the cost of the project. So from an ROI perspective, it's pretty good. Now, the challenge we had was how to do this project. And, for those of you who have worked, I don't know how many of you work both in the private sector and the government. I'm one of those rare characters who's done both. Working in the government is a very different ballgame. First of all, in the private sector, when you think about a business strategy or think about, what we do, we all have a broad framework. We all want to increase the revenue of our companies. We want to increase the profits of our companies. We want to reduce costs. We want to increase market share. We want to introduce new products, new services, get repeat customers. So the language of business is very straightforward. It's about increasing revenues, reducing costs, increasing profits, increasing earnings per share, those kind of things. Now, this is true whatever sector you're in. Whether you're running a steel company, a software company, a hospitality company, a travel company, finally, you're measured by economic factors, your balance sheet, your P&L, your assets and liabilities. stuff like that, share price. So there's a common language of measurement of business performance. So it's easy to operate in that world. In the government world, there is no definition of success. Because success is what you think is the right thing. So success for one is failure for somebody else. So there is no common definition of success. That's one point. The reason for that is that it's also about ideology. If you believe cash transfer is a good thing, then a program that implements cash transfer successfully is a success. But if you believe that cash transfer is a bad thing, then a program that delivers cash transfer is a worse failure because it actually delivers what you don't want. And therefore, in the government or public space, success is a far more undefined attribute, unlike in business. The other thing is that in the business world, you are answerable to a small group of people. If you are the CEO of a company, and I was CEO of Infosys for 5 years, I was co-chairman, I was on the board for 20 plus years, decisions were taken at the management, at the board level. Your management committee met and took some decisions. You obviously carried your employees. If it was a slightly larger decision, you took it to the shareholders, to an AGM. You explained your decision to your analysts and your investors. So it was a defined world. So you could decide. If it's a very big decision, you want to do a big acquisition, then you go to your shareholders and ask for permission. But fundamentally, you operate in a world where all the players are known. In the public world, you have the government, you have the cabinet, you have politicians, you have bureaucrats, you have parliament, you have the media, you have activists, you have courts, and you have people. You've got lots of people. So finding a way to navigate through so many different stakeholders with different goals is a very complex task. So managing in a public environment has more complexity because number one, there is no common definition of success, and number two, there are a lot more stakeholders pulling in different directions. And everybody is judging you in real time, right? We decide solutions in 22 minutes of television talk time. So in that world, how do you sort of maintain focus and get things done? That's the real challenge. Now, one of the things we decided to do was we said, let's design this in a way that we keep the solution as simple as possible. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to keep the solution simple? Solution has to be kept simple because, number one, if you have a simple solution, then it's simpler to implement. If you have a simple solution, which then has less people opposing it. This is an important point, that in most public projects, the people who oppose the project form coalitions faster than the people who support the project. So if you want it to succeed, then you don't want an opposition coalition to form, because that's how all projects are brought to earth. And the one way to reduce the opposition coalition is by keeping it simple so that you have the least number of opposition. In other words, you reduce the number of opponents. Whereas if you make your solution thick or doing many things, then you create more enemies, and therefore more likely that it will get shot down. Therefore, simplicity and minimalism is a very important part of a project in a public system. At the same time, you also want simplicity and minimalism because that will allow you to scale faster. It will allow you to do it faster. And getting scale and momentum is very important, because once you have scale and momentum, then it's very difficult to unravel it because it's already implemented and on the ground. Now, the Aadhaar project was started by the previous government and has been continued with even more enthusiasm by the current government. And that's because, apart from the fact that it solves a genuinely big problem, it had reached a point when the new government came, there were 600 million people on the platform, so it made sense for them to continue. And therefore, scale and speed is very important to ensure the sustainability and stability of any project that you do in the public systems. Having said that, then you may say, if you keep it simple, how will you solve the problem? Because the idea is finally we have to solve a problem, not just keep it simple. And the way we thought about this was, we thought of doing this with a layered architecture. In other words, solve the simple problem first, but design it in a way that it has layers of complexity or layers of sophistication above it, so that over time, it solves a lot more problems. So we said, let's solve the ID problem first. And let's solve the ID problem by giving everyone a unique ID. And then using that ID, let's offer authentication services, which means that I can go somewhere, I go to the airport, I say I'm X, I'm able to verify that I'm X, or I go to withdraw money from an ATM, I can verify that I'm the person, and so on. So we offered authentication services as a layer on top of the identity. And this authentication service was offered as an open API so that anybody could use the authentication layer to do authentication. On top of that, we offered something called eKYC, which is electronic know your customer, which says that you go somewhere, for example, you go to a bank to open a bank account, you authenticate yourself at the bank using an online device, and then you authorize the UID to release your KYC details, which is your name and address, to the bank, and then the bank opens your bank account for you. So this is called as a KYC or eKYC. So eKYC, so first you had ID as the basic layer, give everybody a digital ID. On top of that, you had the authentication as one layer. On top of that, you had the KYC as a second layer. Now, there have been two more layers added to this. One is called e-sign, which allows you to use your Aadhaar number to sign a digital certificate. If you know how digital certificates work before, you had to go to the, you had to get a dongle and put in your laptop and all kinds of things, and therefore, digital certificates really haven't been that popular. But now with e-sign, I can use my Aadhaar number, do an authentication, do a KYC, and sign a document. So that becomes the third layer. And then, using another architecture which has been designed on top of this, called digital lockers, you can design an ecosystem of repositories where documents can be issued and stored, and documents can be retrieved by the user. For example, if you want to clean up these degree certificate, fake degrees, as you know, is a big business in India. A lot of people are supposed to be having fake degrees. So if you want to clean that up, then what you would do is, you would have a system where, suppose you go to a college, you go to, Xavier's College, or you go to Christ College, or Jai Hind, or whatever. When you graduate, those degrees, your degree certificates and your transcripts are digitally signed by the college and stored in a repository. And the address of that is given to you. And when you go for a job interview, instead of carrying some Xerox documents which nobody knows the authenticity of, you just tell the employer to pick up your records from the locker. So you can create a completely paperless architecture for storing billions of documents, be it degree certificates or whatever it is, health records or whatever. So that is another layer on top of this. So think about it. First there was an ID layer. That's what we went out and did very quickly and got 1 billion people on. On that ID layer is an authentication layer. On the authentication layer is a KYC layer. On the authentication and KYC layer, there's a digital signature layer. And then on top of that, there's a layer which organizes documents. Each of them is a layer on top of the previous layers. So today, using the authentication, using the KYC, using the digital signature and using the lockers, you have the complete architecture for electronic paperless instant service delivery. Now that's the important thing, that we didn't go in and say we'll build all this in one day, because that would have created all kinds of problems. But by going in and saying let's keep it simple, going in and doing the identity, we then get the identity, create a user base, and then we grow forward. Now this is similar to how it works in the internet world. As you know, in the internet world, companies come and launch very quickly and create a user base, and then they create applications around the user base. For example, the pace at which Aadhaar rolled out, which is 900 million people in less than 5 years, is faster than WhatsApp. It's probably faster than, Facebook or smartphone. So it's pretty, seriously. But then what happens is once you get in there and once you have a large base, then you can build users around it, right? So Facebook could create a large user base. They could launch Facebook video, Facebook Messenger, etc. Buy WhatsApp, or WhatsApp could first launch messaging and then now offer voice. So once you have a large installed base, a large number of people, then you can offer more services. So that was the philosophy that we had. So get the ID going and then build that. So that was one element of the strategy. The second element of the strategy was don't try to do it yourself. One of the things is governments operate in silos. Everybody is in his own department. So everybody tries to reinvent the whole stack. We said we can't be going around reinventing the whole stack if we're going to get 1 billion people in 5 years. So we deliberately designed an architecture where enrollment was done by multiple parties. So enrollment into Aadhaar was done by the banks, it was done by the insurance companies, by the post office, by the state governments, by NPR. And the idea of this multiple enrollments was the more locations there are to enroll, the faster you can enroll. The more locations you have to enroll, the more convenient it is for people to enroll. And the more enrollment stations you have, the more choice the people have. Because a lot of corruption happens because people don't have a choice. If you can create a model where if A doesn't do it, you can go to B, then you reduce rent seeking and so on. So at the peak, we had about 30,000 enrollment stations around the country. So this architecture of creating registrars, which is post office, bank, state government, who in turn had enrolling agencies, was a key design basically to get scale going very, very quickly. So that's very much part of doing these large projects is thinking through the architecture of scale. The other important thing was how to make it convenient for the resident. Because if you want someone to enroll, they should be able to enroll anytime, anywhere. Why is this important? Because you can't tell people, in many systems, they will say, okay, you can't enroll till we tell you. And then you come at, 11 o'clock on Friday morning to this office and stand in the queue and all that. So we didn't want all that stuff. We said, is there a way to build a system where a person can choose to enroll at a time and date and location of their choice? So suppose I'm somebody from Jharkhand working in the domestic thing in Gurgaon. I should be able to enroll when I have a couple of hours in a Gurgaon enrollment station. So this anytime, anywhere enrollment was very important. But to implement anytime, anywhere enrollment, how do you do that without fraud? How do you do that without duplication? So that's why the complexity moves from the back end, from the front end to the back end. So the front end becomes simple. Anytime, anywhere, you just walk in, enroll. But the back end became hugely sophisticated because we had to build the world's largest biometric deduplication facility, which could match millions of people to see if the person enrolled somewhere else. Because we had to control it through technology. It is not controlling it through some guy sitting and saying you already enrolled. That we can't do that. But controlling it at the back end using technology by doing massive biometric deduplication. An example of that is that today, when you have 900 million people in the Aadhaar system, you have 1 million new people enrolling. The system is doing 900 trillion matches. Matching each person enrolled has to be matched against all the people in the database. That's really a massive computational exercise, which is, as the largest in the world. But that allowed us to make the simple. In other words, use technology to move the complexity to the back end, but make the customer interface simple is a very important general design attribute. And the reason we were able to do that is that we were able to take advantage of the scale of the internet architecture. If you know what's been happening in this game, for a long time, the scale of applications, technology was enterprise driven, right? So the world's largest companies use the biggest system. So Sabre did airline processing, or Goldman Sachs did trading, or Citibank did ATMs. These were the examples in our world of the world's largest systems processing transactions. But that has moved. Today the scale is not in the enterprise applications. The scale is in the internet world. The scale is in Google, which does, several billion emails a day. Facebook video does 2 million views a day. Snapchat, a young company out of Los Angeles, does 2 million views a day. So suddenly, what the internet has shown is that you can think of billions of transactions per day for billions of people. But they have done that using radically different architectures. They've all used open source stacks, Linux and Hadoop and MySQL and, all these kind of things. They use messaging architectures which are scalable. So when we designed this system, we designed it using these kind of ideas. So the entire stack in the Aadhaar system is an open source stack. The entire stack is using the same stack that's inside a Google or a Facebook. The entire stack is using messaging so that there's no constraints when it is scalable on all dimensions. And the entire stack is done on commodity hardware. So today the entire deduplication infrastructure in Aadhaar is about 3,000 to 4,000 servers. So the entire thing the entire stack and the hardware database can fit into a small house. Imagine, 1 billion people's data in a small house. So that's the power of today's technology. But you have to think through the architecture to make sure that you design it in a way that you get this kind of linear scalability. We also had to figure out how to make sure that everybody is unique. If you go to Finland or something, everybody has a birth certificate. And there's only one birth certificate because they have systems. You go to a hospital, you get born and someone gives a certificate. All the 6 million people, all that stuff. Now in India, you don't have any systems, right? There's so many people born without birth certificates. Even today, in some states where the governance is not so great, more than half the babies born don't have birth certificates. It's because they're born at home, far away from the hospital, or because, you have to give a bribe to get a birth certificate, corruption starts at birth kind of thing. So, how do you address this problem when there are millions of people without birth certificates and they may be part of a ration card, but the ration card is a state document, it's not a national document, and so on. So we had to think through all that. And we said, look, the only way we can do that is by using technology and biometric deduplication. Make sure that a person does not enroll twice by using the biometric, because the biometrics are unique. But then the question came, what is it that we have what are the biometric attributes which will establish uniqueness? And most people at that time had built systems for about 100 million people. The largest system when we started in 2009 was 100 million people in the FBI US visit application. We were building for 1 billion, so nobody had done this. And therefore we realized that just doing fingerprint deduplication was not enough. It didn't have the kind of reliability that we wanted. So we did, for the first time, combine two different attributes, fingerprint and iris. Because with both these attributes, all the 10 fingerprints and the iris of both the eyes, we were reasonably confident that we would get an accuracy for 1 billion people of uniqueness. And now we have enough data now, because we have 900 million people, that we have an accuracy of 99.99% on deduplication, which means that on 1 billion people, we probably, if a lot of people, first of all, not everybody tries to, cheat the system. A lot of people enroll because they're not got the previous things, more out of anxiety than malice. But you will probably get a few thousand duplicates, which is not bad on 1 billion people, and we have other ways of fraud detection to figure that out. So using this bimodal or dual mode biometric deduplication, which has not been done at that time anywhere else, we're able to actually get accuracy of that level for 1 billion people. That again was a very clear design choice that we made, that how do we use the best combination of biometrics, which was 10 fingerprints and iris of 2 eyes, to get uniqueness across 1 billion people. So once again, figuring this out is a program management issue. What is the best technology? Which one do we use? We have to make sure that there's no IP issues. We have to make sure that we had it open. Now this is again a very important part of the architecture, and it helps in public systems. The architecture of this system is what's called as an hourglass architecture. An hourglass architecture is something which is like, there is a, like this, there's a stem and it's like this, an hourglass which you tilt. Now an hourglass architecture is something where all the standardization is only at the stem. So above the stem and below the stem, you can have innovation. This is called simultaneous innovation of the hourglass. And you can think of the internet as an example of an hourglass, because if you go back to look at the history of the internet's brilliance was essentially the TCP/IP architecture, which allowed different computers to talk to each other, where it did not matter what was inside the packet. The data didn't matter inside the packet, but the packet routing and all was standardized. And that led to TCP/IP. And TCP/IP then led to the World Wide Web and so on. So if you look at the internet, you can think of the applications as the stuff above the stem in the hourglass. So World Wide Web, Google, Facebook, all that is applications above the stem. And below the stem is the advances in communication. So you got better, speeds, you got 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, LTE, XYZ, Wi-Fi, Zigbee, all that stuff happening below the thing. So the architecture allows you to do simultaneous innovation. So with the guy building the application on top can build his application, and somebody building the technology at the bottom can build the technology independent of each other because of the stem in between. And which is why we are seeing today such a large innovation around internet. Similarly, GPS is another example of an hourglass architecture, because GPS applications are above the stem. The stem is basically answering the question, where am I? And whether it's a Uber or Ola, or whether it's a location-based service, the Google Map, they're all using GPS as applications. And below the stem, there's continuous innovation happening in the GPS chip, so that now every smartphone has a GPS chip, and therefore suddenly you are having innovation below and above the stem. So the other architecture is also using an hourglass architecture. So the stem is essentially the APIs which have enrollment, authentication, and so on. And above the stem are all the users of Aadhaar. So Aadhaar based, one of the big applications that the new government has done is Aadhaar based biometric attendance for bureaucrats. That's one of the reasons I left Delhi, So today about 300,000 people a day are clocking in the attendance using Aadhaar. That's an application of Aadhaar. Today, 1 million people in a month or 2 million people a month are withdrawing money from a micro ATM in a village using Aadhaar. Application of Aadhaar. And so on. So these are all applications. So you can keep building applications on top of the stem. It could be government applications or private applications. And below the stem will be advances in technology. So biometrics will become faster, better, cheaper. For example, the Aadhaar authentication supports both fingerprint and iris. So you can put a finger and authenticate yourself online, or you can use the iris. The next generation of smartphones will have an iris camera built in. Right? So think of it like those of you who have the iPhone. iPhone has had this thing called the Touch ID for some time, which is basically a fingerprint reader. And that's the basis for Apple Pay. But that's a closed system. It's all inside the Apple world. We are providing an open authentication API with iris. And the bill of material for that iris camera in a smartphone is less than $5. So basically, for a $50, $60, $100 smartphone, you will have iris authentication built in. Which means that I can just look at the phone, click, it'll check my iris against my iris in the Aadhaar database and authenticate and good to go. So this fundamentally changes everything. So while on the one hand somebody is building the applications, on the other hand somebody is innovating on the technology. And both these things are happening simultaneously. So when we think about systems, especially public systems, not only we have to think of them as being minimal, we also have to think of them as hourglass, so that innovation happens across both applications at the top and technology below. And that's a fundamental way to think about designing large, complex public systems. You don't try to do the whole thing yourself, because that's not going to work. You won't get anywhere anyway. Somebody will stop you on the way. So that's very important that you design these, and your strategy has to be very correct. So I think these are a lot of learnings for us. We spent a lot of time in coalition building. We spent a lot of time in reaching out. In the early days of the project, I would go to every state government and meet the chief minister and chief secretary to convince them to become part of this. I went and met the RBI, IBA, IRDA, PFRDA, TRAI, Alphabet Soup, everybody. And fundamentally to make sure that everybody is on board, because unless you carry everyone, you can't get this done. And speed, scale, you have to have a sense of inevitability. In other words, this is going to happen. If if people don't think it's going to happen, it won't happen. If people think it's going to happen, it will happen. So it's very important that you convey a sense of inevitability. Ye hone wala hai. So don't fight. Just come for the journey. So I think it's very important that we create that. And the important thing is, because you can't do project management in the traditional sense, this is not about, creating some, PERT chart and some tasks and all that stuff. A little more complex than that. This is about managing an ecosystem of 200,000 enrolling people trained in enrolling, 30,000 enrollment stations, millions of users, 35 registrars, 75 enrolling agencies. You can't manage it using classical project management tools. So the way we manage that is with data. So everything, it's one of the largest database management systems that you have, because every transaction, we know, for example, which operator is efficient, which operator is inefficient, which biometric is low quality, which one is high quality, and so on and so forth. So you use data to manage a distributed architecture where there are multiple stakeholders. And the data is captured at the point of activity. So when somebody enrolls, the data is captured and encrypted at that point, so that it flows through the system from a security and privacy perspective. So this requires you to rethink project management at scale. So project management at scale is not done using classical project management tools, but using data at scale to manage. How do you manage? At the peak of the UID, we had about 300 people. 300 people were managing an ecosystem which had 300,000 people. So you had thousands of people doing enrollment, thousands of people delivering letters, thousands of people, all that. But all that, they're not working for us. They're working for the respective organizations. So the only way to manage that, bring accountability, bring transparency, bring scale, bring visibility, was through data. So I think the modern way of thinking about large systems management is really about how do we build highly telemeterized, highly granularized, creating the digital exhaust from all the interactions and using that to manage accountability, transparency, and so on. So that's the way we need to think about large systems, especially in the public domain. So what I've tried to do is really spell out for you what some of the things that we did. There are many more things we did. I can spend the whole day talking about it. But it is a huge learning, at least for me, on how to do these large projects in public area. Today, we think that with this platform, identity, authentication, eKYC, digital certificates, and digital lockers, you now have the complete stack for paperless, instant applications. Everything is paperless and instant. And once you have the smartphone, which has got biometric authentication, which will come in the next 6 months, this entire stack is on your phone. Right? You never have to go to a government office after this, hopefully. Now, the other important thing we're doing to build on this is, I'm working with NPCI to build a mobile payment API, which allows any payment to talk to any wallet or any bank account to talk to any bank account on the mobile phone. Today, I don't know whether you've been watching what's happening, but there have been new payment banks coming. But the risk that you have is that you're going to create silos, right? So you'll have a Paytm silo and a MobiKwik silo and a Chiller silo and all that. Ultimately, you have to make this interoperable. And it would be very funny if you could only talk to other Airtel customers or only Vodafone customers. That doesn't work. You don't ask the person which network you're on, you just call his number. You need the same thing in payments. You need to be able to send money to anyone without worrying about where his bank account or wallet is. And for that you need an API layer which is interoperable. So we are working on something called the Unified Payment Interface, which is under development at the moment. Trial runs will start in 2 months and launch in December, which will allow mobile payment from any wallet to any wallet, any bank account to any bank account. So that will then make it cashless. So think about it. Aadhaar authentication, eKYC, certificates, lockers, and cashless. It's all there. On your phone, using your bank account, using your Aadhaar number, you can do every transaction that you want. You can open bank accounts, buy an insurance policy, pay a premium, apply for a birth certificate, everything on your phone. And that architecture is unique to India. There is no country in the world which has this architecture. And that architecture is available today to 900 million people. And that is the power of what is possible if you do it right. But it's very important to get your strategy right, to get your architecture right, to get your layering right, to get your partnerships right, to build the right coalitions and navigate through the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. There are so many questions coming in, and we would like to take as many as possible. But this is the first question, and in fact, my heart is still beating when I'm asking this. After Aadhaar, what is the next wave that you want to bring that redefines India?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the Aadhaar story itself is not over, because I think the 5-layer stack I talked about, of 6 layers, Aadhaar plus identity plus Aadhaar plus authentication, eKYC, e-sign, locker and UPI, that stack will redefine all industries. So that will change banking, it will change telecommunication, it will change insurance, it will change everything. So that is not that I will do it, but that journey is a 10-year journey which will unfold, and I need to make sure that people understand what's happening. So,
sir, what is that next initiative you want to bring in?
So let me tell you. The next initiative that I'm working on is called Ek Step. Ek Step. One step. Ek Step. Ek Step is a platform for applied literacy and numeracy. Because we think that now with smartphones becoming cheap and ubiquitous, India already has 150 million smartphones. In the next 3 to 4 years, there'll be 500 million smartphones. And the fact that smartphones have multimedia, voice, video, and all that, do literacy and numeracy on the smartphone using personalization at scale. So every child will have like a personalized instruction at scale to address literacy and numeracy.
We'll definitely look forward for the transformation, sir. And there is another one question on what kept you motivating during this project, especially when Aadhaar, when you had so much of opposition? What kept you motivating?
Well, I think it was very important that we succeed, because I think in some sense my fear was that if we fail, then nobody will try something like this for 20 years. Whereas if we succeed, then hopefully more guys will try this, more men and women will try this. So in that sense, I saw it as a larger issue than just success of our project.
And since there are a lot of people watching this on the webcast from Melbourne, Bhubaneswar, Krishnagiri, this why Aadhaar is limited to LPG subsidy. Now, since you said in the first part of my question, since it's going to be now moving to insurance, banking, telecom. So I guess that answers. Thank you, Prasad. And sir, when you started this UID project, what was at the top of your mind? Was it the architecture or devising methodology to reach the weaker section of the society?
No, I think, obviously the goal was to make it as inclusive as possible. So that was the goal. I mean, to give everybody who didn't have an ID and bring them into the digital identity infrastructure. But we had two simultaneous challenges. One was the back end, which was extreme complexity in technology, because nobody had done this before. But the bigger challenge was the front end challenge, managing the politics of it.
That's the biggest challenge. Sir, whether UIDs is going to be used in Pradhan Mantri's Jan Dhan Yojana?
It is being used. eKYC, for example, uses.
Okay. And
all the payments are using Aadhaar.
And this digital locker system, which is connected to the Aadhaar system, does this help the rural public, especially when there is no internet for them?
No, see, the assumption that we are making is that infrastructure will keep rolling out. That internet, already 80-90% of the population is within internet range. And as more people roll out 3G and 4G networks, as the government rolls out the Bharat broadband network, or, Google puts up some loon or Facebook puts up some drone, something will happen. I mean, to me, that's a global problem somebody is figuring out.
Yes.
Assume that everybody will have connectivity.
Probably one of the sectors from the Digital India should address that.
Yeah, so I'm saying the assumption that we make is that because when you do a project, you have to look at the trend and anticipate where the future is, not just where it is today.
True.
The assumption is that everybody will be connected, everybody will have access to a cheap smartphone or a feature phone, everybody will have an account.
Sir, the last question. What are those three factors hindering India's faster growth? And other than politics, corruption?
Well, I think I think the solutions are there, and I think we have shown in some areas how we can solve things, and I worked on other things. But I feel that we have to change, we have to reimagine the way we run this country, and that's what is missing. In the sense, business as usual is not going to solve India's problems. You can forget it. You have to dramatically disrupt using technology and all that. And I have a book coming out which will talk about that soon.
Wow.
So please wait for the book. It's called
Thank you.
Rebooting India, Realizing a Billion Aspirations, coming in November, where I've laid a complete roadmap for transformation through technology.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering these questions. And can I call Mr. Raj Kaladi to honor Mr. Nandan Nilekani? Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have to give the musical clap. All right? So we'll start. 1.
This looks like a project management innovation here.
Keep uploading. Yes, that's the energy that you have.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Representing the board, we have Mr. Jacob Verghese, Head IT Defense Aerospace India. India is becoming an innovation destination. This session will focus on explaining why innovating for India is different and how this innovation can be fostered. It is a learning through the journey from entrepreneurship to entrepreneurship that will be shared by Mr. Vishnu Sundaram, Director, Telematics at Haman India Private Limited, as part of today's keynote address called Seeding Innovation for Tomorrow's India. In his current role, Mr. Vishnu Sundaram is responsible for large-scale infotainment program execution for European customers. He started his career with a short stint at Intel and later moved to technology company Trilogy, where he played the role of technical fellow in predictive analysis and machine learning projects. He was a product of Trilogy University program, the Harvard Business Review Renowned Bootcamp, to create a cult of individuals with extreme creativity, innovation, and strategic thinking. After quitting Trilogy, he started the entrepreneurship journey by co-founding LifeBlock, which got acquired by Printo, and founded Interchain, that again got acquired by Harman in 2012. This entrepreneurship journey of over 6 years in the connected space helped in building strong business acumen, in creating a realized vision to build products for tomorrow. He holds a master's degree in specialization in software engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Vishnu Sundaram. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Nandan, for boosting up our inspiration levels. And so that was a long introduction about me. I'm going to make it much concise for you to follow what I've done in the past. So I'm going to talk about two things today. One is how innovation for India is different. So innovation is all about doing things differently, or it's all about a new idea. Is it the same innovating for the rest of the world and innovating for India? So that's something that I want to touch upon. And I'd also touch upon another point of a small vision that I carried of building a product that can touch people's lives around us. I want to touch how that resonated all throughout my journey so far. Okay, oh, wow, this is better. Okay, so talking about India. Now, India is different in culture, that we know. But other than that, there are significant differences. Number one, our population. So as you see here, we are one of the largest population countries, and we also have the largest growth expected in the next few years. That means this is a market that cannot be ignored, and our size of the audience is very, very large. And the second interesting problem is the demography. As one of our members pointed out, more than 60% of our population is age group of under 30. As you all would realize, the needs of somebody under age of 30 will be very different from needs of somebody in the age of 45, which is what you have in the rest of the world. As you see here, so that's a very interesting curve that you see on the right side. If you see the developing markets, most of the population is top heavy. And what this means is their needs are different. It's going to be around health. It's going to be around social security. It's going to be around things like that. Whereas when you look at our population demography, we are going to solve problems around education, problems around enabling connectivity, problems around getting access to information and stuff like that. So the needs are different, the demography is different, and the denominator of the audience that we are going to serve is also different. So that's one, those are a couple of reasons why we believe that we cannot translate the innovation that's there in the rest of the world and implant that in India. Rather, we need to seed innovation in India. So, will India just follow the global trend? So, in many years back, India used to follow the trend. Whatever technologies that you see in the Western world will come to India after 5 years. And this became shorter and shorter. But if you ask me now, we are not going to follow the trend. In the sense, if in the US they had taken 5 steps to reach a destination, we will probably take step 1, step 2, and we will jump to step 5 from there. We might skip 3, 4, 5. To quote some of the examples, our adoption of 4G. The technology that we are adopting on the telecom side today is the fastest technology in 4G, which Western countries like US made 3 steps before they moved to this 4G technology. Talking about internet connectivity, the Western world looked at internet penetration on their desktop and then subsequently moved to their phone. Whereas in India, we are jumping straight into internet access from phone. And what this means is, this is going to redefine the audience. Our audience are going to expect a transformation leap which will help them jump these steps. Citing some of the trends that we see in the automotive industry. This is one more reason why we believe that the industry in India operates very different. If I have to plot a graph with the volumes of the requirement in one axis, and if I put the value for money equation in the other axis, you will see that India fits in the bottom left corner, which is very different from the other 3 quadrants. This is specific to the automotive world. And what this means is a solution that has worked in other countries, for example, China, cannot be directly implemented in India. And should we ignore India? Should we wait for our industry to mature, for our volumes to increase, or for our affordability of our customers to go beyond what is there today? Answer is no. The reason is because we are in the tipping point of consumer adoption in any technology that you look at. So what this means is India cannot be ignored in terms of the needs for addressing the demography that's there, and we cannot look at importing the technology or the solution that has succeeded in the rest of the world. So where can this innovation come from? So the innovation can come from individuals like us, and this is going to be disruptive in most cases. It also comes from enterprises. The enterprises do a linear step in terms of advancement, in terms of what they're building for the consumers, and that's one source of innovation. And the third one is from the multinationals. So multinationals set a specific focus on the emerging markets, and you see them building products that are focused towards our markets. So this is also one source of innovation that solves the problem of having this built in India. So I'm going to share some of the anecdotes of my journey through two of these two blocks, which is as an individual and also as part of a multinational. So the first picture, so I wanted to pictorially represent what I did, and this is the simplest that I could get without any text. So I started my career as a data scientist, worked in consumer behavior study for a while, and as a data scientist, you get a lot of data. You have time to consume a lot of information, and I realized that there are a lot of problems bigger than just simply understanding consumer behavior to solve, and that's one of the reasons why I left Trilogy and started something on my own. And when we started something on our own, we built a location-based solution. So location-based solution in late 2000s, so we are talking about 2005, 2006 time frame, this was a very, very early concept. You didn't have smartphones which are GPS enabled. You didn't have maps. You didn't have Google Maps on mobile then. And all people knew about maps is Google Earth. So that was the first product that Google launched. So what I did is built a mobile app which could run on a phone and could integrate with an external Bluetooth device and offer a location-based client. So this had a lot of adoption in sports, in recreation, in government, in a lot of other areas. One of the interesting areas that acclaimed critical mass was in disaster relief solutions. So the solution that we built was used in Katrina disaster relief programs, where there was a large-scale disaster, and they had to assess the progress of the recovery constantly. And they could not, so this is a public organization, this is the public welfare organization, and they couldn't afford expensive location equipments. Instead, what everyone did is they carried a mobile phone and they could walk across each disaster-struck zone and see what the status was last year and what it is this year. So this received a lot of attention, and the thought process was, how can this be applied in India? So that was the journey in bringing this to India. And what we focused on when we started Interchain was, how can we change the way the first responder solutions work. First responder is a terminology that I use to include police, fire, and medical emergency. So we built solutions that could change some of these, the way these work, and I'm going to talk about how we built it and how we scaled it. So one of the first things as an individual or an entrepreneur that you start is setting the vision. When we started, we had the earlier generation telematics solutions, which are like big boxes that were there, which meant nothing to the customers. So we had to apply that technology in India, which means we have to change this for India. The Indian driving conditions are different. The Indian police vehicles are different. Indian ambulances are different. The fire equipments are also very, very different. The skill of the people who are using these vehicles, for example, an ambulance, is also very, very different. So we had to modify the solution. So we came up with innovation in terms of packaging, innovation in terms of usability, and innovation in terms of price point as well. So we identified government agencies who were eager for efficiency optimization. So we started with addressing this problem primarily for police, ambulance, and fire. While we did that, we also laid the foundation for how to take this technology tomorrow to you and me as end users of the solution, and we built a range of products. While we did all this, we were able to do this to a good amount of installations. We did this for one of our prestigious clients is Karnataka Police, so we did this implementation on 31 districts. We did this on quite a few locations, but for us to scale, we had to take this beyond what we as few individuals could do. So, talking about what we did, I spoke about the bigger picture, but let me get into the specifics of what we actually did. So, we implemented a telematics solution for the police departments. We did this all across India for many of the departments, and what we were able to achieve is efficiency. You'd be surprised to note that in a police department, one of the biggest sub-departments is motor transport department. The police department uses nearly 2,000 of their workforce in motor transport management. So what they do, they just track what the jeeps are up to, fueling them, maintaining them, upgrading them, understanding where they are, what the problems are. For just to do this, they had 2,000 people per state. And we automated a lot of process that they did. We helped them manage their locations, manage the vehicle condition, manage the dispatching of the vehicles, and we were able to bring this down to 10%. And that really, that really helped them put their time on solving the real problem rather than, managing motor transport. And similarly, the other big problem that we solved is for the ambulance sector. Let me quote a personal experience that I had. I met with a small accident when I was traveling from Bangalore to Chennai, and I called a helpline, and the response. So I said, "I'm Vishnu. I'm in a personal emergency. I'm in an emergency. I need help. I'm in Krishnagiri." And the response was, "So which state are you calling from?" So I had to say it's Tamil Nadu. So then, which city are you calling from? What is the PIN code? And what is the nearest landmarks that you see? So these were kind of the questions that were asked. And essentially, the golden hour that is needed for the help to arrive during an emergency, right? It was close to 30 minutes. And what we did is we tried providing solutions that could help them optimize on the golden hour. What happens today with our solutions is when you call the helpline, say any number, let's take 1010 for example. When you call the number, the operator on the other side uses either your mobile triangulation or your landline number to find where you are. So he knows you're not calling from Sikkim, but you're calling from somewhere around Krishnagiri. And after having that information, he asks you relevant information because he has a map around him with all the location information. And then he also knows the helplines or the vehicles that are around, the first responders who can be called there. He gives this information to the responder, and responder gets this on their display. And once they have this information, they're able to navigate to the right destination. It doesn't end here. So while the operator talks to you, he captures the basic information about the problem. So he's able to tell the ambulance operator, it's not a pregnancy, but it's a road accident. And he's able to tell them what are the various things to look for, or what are the preparations that he need to make in the ambulance to attend this emergency. And once he reaches here, there's a case history that's already built based on the telecon that you had. And the ambulance operator adds further information about the patient to this system. And this information goes to a room of doctors who sit in the control room, who again provide telemedicine treatment to the patient on board, and thereby ensuring that the golden hour is reduced, and also you're safely transported, and the care really starts when the ambulance arrives, but doesn't really wait for you to reach the hospital. It doesn't end here. The hospital also gets an intimation who's expected, when are they expected, and their medical history, so that they're well prepared. We implemented this in many states in India. And the last one is the fire service department. So in case of fire service, there is a teamwork involved. So it's not usually one person coming and solving the problem. There is a need for them to understand the support that's available around them. when an ambulance service operator reaches a particular spot, he might not have all the information about the emergency, and it might need more help, more volunteers, more people, more water. So this system shows them what is the nearest available other first responders, the resources that are available, how they can come and solve the problem. And we implemented this as well, and this was successfully received. So moving on from scaling whatever we did in small pockets to all across India. So this is a story of connecting my entrepreneurship to intrapreneurship journey. So we struck a chord with a multinational Harman. I hope you know them. And one of their important visions was to grow in emerging markets. And if you have to grow in emerging markets, Harman recognized that you have to create products and solutions that are relevant for the emerging markets, and that's how our team was identified by Harman and acquired. And what helped us was in really scaling what we used to do in a small scale. We were able to take our implementations to all the points that you see on the map. We operate close in 18 states, and we touch the people's lives either in the police solution or in the ambulance solution or in the fax service provider solution. So this is one of the divisions which is very different from the rest of Harman. Rest of the Harman operates in providing infotainment solution inside the vehicle, whereas this division looks at providing solutions using connectivity in a vehicle to touch people's lives. This is a live snapshot of some of the data that's running on our system. So as I told you, we started building with control rooms, enabling police departments work effectively, and later we solved another big problem as Harman. The problem is about intelligent transportation solution. So if you look at India, our transportation solution is lagging behind in many ways. So we came up with a modern payment collection solution. So we wanted a solution where somebody could walk to a bus stand, collect a token, and get into a bus or swipe their card, very similar to what you do in your metros. So we built a custom solution that made us bring this to buses, and we have implemented this in the model city Bhopal. And Bhopal has received a gold standard accreditation for their intelligent transport solution with our onboard and offboard solution, where they are able to use our solution to touch 100,000 transactions per day in everyday lives of people. So Harman, a multinational company, doesn't end with solving a problem locally. The goal is how can we take whatever local innovations that we do globally. One of the things that we did is we solved the problem of innovating product beyond the features. So we had the telematics solution for a long time, but what we couldn't solve is providing the support reach all across India and also meeting price points that were very relevant for India. We did something different here. So we built a hybrid solution which uses a combination of automotive and non-automotive grade parts. And we met a very, very interesting price point that was not achieved before. So what this means is you will soon see in a couple of years, you will see cars becoming connected and being part of your car, giving you safety, security, and convenience solutions. And that will be because of companies like us innovating in terms of price as well as availability. The other thing that we built is creating new product segments. If we look at infotainment in India, it's very different. When I buy a car, I don't want to pay for safety. I think it's a premium. And if I don't want to pay for safety, I might not as well pay for the infotainment features. In the Western world, consumers pay up to $3,000 per car for the infotainment system. Whereas in India, we had to touch price points of $100. And how do we do that? So what we did is we did a hybrid system which uses your mobile phone's capability in terms of connectivity and enabled navigation connected services on a basic $100 radio. So we built this innovation in India, and we are also providing this for some of the customers in India, but we didn't stop there. We took this globally, and we won close to $5 billion of business in the global markets. This also reinforces the message that scaling from small to big is much better than scaling out a bigger solution into a smaller problem. The other interesting problem that we solved in the car is actually keeping your car updated. Think about your mobile phone. You change your mobile phone every 6 months, every 1 year, whereas you change your car every 5 years. That means that your car is predominantly going to be outdated. Every 2 years, you are going to have a feeling that my car probably doesn't look as good as what is there in the market. What we did is we looked at several options to keep this updated, and there's an inherent problem here. So the development cycle in building a solution for a car is much longer than a mobile phone. So we cannot change the systems in the car every year. What we did is we created a small, an extension box, a dongle that you can go and plug in your car, which has all the infotainment features that you would see. So that means that today you have dongle version 1 and you get version 1 features, and 1 year down the line you can pull the dongle out and put a new dongle and get newer features on your same car. So this is something which is on offer, and you will see this in cars very soon. We have some of the European customers already who like the idea and who have absorbed it. You will soon see this in India as well. So, if I have to conclude or summarize whatever I've discussed, we facilitating the transformation is an important responsibility that we shoulder in helping India not go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but jump from step 2 to step 5 directly. We cannot become a developed nation after 50 years. We have to make it happen now. And if we have to make it happen now, we have to create the products that are relevant for India in India. There is a culture element, there is a DNA element that is involved, which has to be done with Indians. So that's the reason why we emphasize, or either in our entrepreneurship, in the startup, or in a multinational, that the Indian DNA should be part of the solutions that are going to be launched in India rather than just importing some of these solutions. We also followed some of the other good practices. So we did all the engineering that is involved in building these products in India. And we scaled up some of the ideas. First we built it in India and then we took it global, which was well received in the global markets. And we also bent the theory of constraints. When you jump into a problem, the first thing that you see is constraints. And if you are stuck with that, you are not going to innovate. The safety requirements in India is one of the example. The other problem that we addressed to Nandan, whether India is going to have connectivity all across. I think we have to break these constraints because this is going to be solved by somebody else. And we have to synergize with others. Again, reinforcing a point that Nandan made, we should look at solving a smaller problem because there are a lot of others around us who will solve the rest of the problem. When we narrow down our focus to a smaller area, we will be much successful. And we also, at least in Harman India, the mantra that we follow today is scalable. What we do is we try to help our customers start with something small and facilitate them to take this big when their customers are ready to adopt, rather than waiting for their customers to jump straight into a full-blown $3,000 solution. So this has worked for us, and I believe this will work for the rest of the industries as well. And I conclude my speech with the last message saying that we need to create in India and then make in India so that the whole story ties up in seeding the innovation for India. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vishnu. I heard that you yourself are a good innovator. And a lot of plans are there in the case of a connected cars and all. But what about any innovation that you're planning for a common man like me?
Sure. For India, technology is not the only problem that solves the question of innovation. So we are looking at a business model innovation. In the sense, we are looking at inverting the way consumer works with the auto industry. To give you an example, we will pay you for driving your car. How does that sound?
Good. I actually don't have a car. I use the Volvos.
Okay. we will still pay you. We will figure out solutions on how we can pay you for using public transport.
I would look forward for that.
Sure. So we are looking at solutions where we can incentivize safe driving, where we can come out with solutions which even an auto driver can understand. If he drives safe, he gets paid. We are looking at solutions like that. We're looking at business model innovation.
I'm sure a lot of Ola, Uber must be behind you now, sir, other than the autos.
Sure.
Sir, this is another question from Paran. What are the challenges you see with telematics in commercial vehicle segment in India?
Sure. There are several challenges. To start with, if we look at the solutions, so telematics is supposed or sold as a solution which can reduce their operational costs and increase their profitability. This happens if and only if the solution integrates with their daily workflows. And in most cases, generic solutions that are there in the market doesn't solve this purpose, so the consumers don't really see the benefit of having a telematics solution. So this will change when you have segment-focused solutions which the industry is bringing in now. And also telematics 5 years back was a technology which is ahead of time. You didn't have the maps and connectivity that was available, but now I think this is available, and we are ready for the next leap in terms of telematics.
Sir, there are so many questions pouring in, and this one again is what was the approach to connect with government? So I guess now you are going to be connecting with the BMTC, right, for me? So the other question is, when do you think you will be able to catch up with the developed market?
Sure. At least in the space where we are currently working with, we are very, very confident that we will be able to catch up with the developed market in terms of safety solutions for people on the road. So Harman has started a new division called Connected Safety. In India, safety is collaborative. How do we reach from home to work without having an accident in such a chaos? That's because, we coordinate with each other well, though we have so much chaos on the road. And we are looking at bringing more technology here, where we will have cars talking to each other and being able to make it much more safer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And audience, fantastic. I would request Mr. Suman to come to the stage to honor our speaker.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
And for the audience, the feedback forms is available. The session code for this is KN01. Request you to put your session code and give your feedbacks. We would really love to hear from you. You can hand it over to the people at the aisle coordinators. Just before we break for the first break, we have to be back here at 11:15 a.m. and probably before that. Tea, coffee will be served in the designated areas. Do visit the PM poster kiosks. And also there is announcement from the PMI, which is again what I said, there are 300 surprise gifts that you can collect. So please make sure you visit the stalls. And volunteering is so much fun. Come and visit the PMI Indian Champion stall in the lawn area and participate in the dump charade. That should be around 3:30 p.m. in the second coffee break. And post the refreshment break, there is a story that I am going to be share of a warrior. There are some people who fight unsealed battle without any crib, 24/7 with a big smile on their face. They never crib, they never cry, they never whine. I call such people warriors, and they are the people who know the art of living. I'll share the story post refreshment break. Come back quickly.